This is part 2 of the presentation, Living in a Connected World. And in this segment, I'm looking at staying connected. Do you really need a computer, or is a tablet the best option for you? And which is better, an iPad or a tablet? We also look at smartphones and all the features of different types of smartphones. So staying connected. First decision you need to make is, are you going to buy a computer or a tablet or both? When you go to buy a computer, you're often confronted with a whole lot of specifications which you need to understand in order to make an informed decision. This is an ad for a desktop machine, and alongside the ad were those specs, and some of them are quite obvious. The Windows 8 is the operating system, the Blu-ray, the DVD player, webcam, wireless network, Wi-Fi, the hard drive, but some of them are a bit obscure, so let's take a minute just to go through what some of those specs mean. This machine has 6 gigabytes of RAM. So what exactly is RAM? And RAM is random access memory. It's the memory that your computer accesses while it's on. And when you turn off the computer, anything in the RAM disappears unless you save it to your hard drive. The opposite of that is ROM, read-only memory, which is built into chips on the computer and is used to hold some of the processes. The more RAM you have, the faster your computer can access programs and without any lag time. That means if you've got Photoshop running and you're editing a photo and you're also playing a movie at the same time, if you've got enough RAM, the computer can handle both of those at once without any lag, because they're highly intensive on the CPU, on the central processing unit. The more RAM you have, the better. The minimum you should go for is 4 gigabytes. I think new computers, Windows computers, are a lot more than that now. 8 is a good amount of RAM, 8 gigabytes. You don't need to do too much. It depends what you're going to be doing. The less RAM you have, the more likely you're going to be sitting and waiting for the computer to catch up, because it has to find its memory from somewhere else. Media card reader. This machine has a media card reader, and a lot of electronic devices now contain removable memory cards that you use to store data on files. And the most obvious example is a digital camera, which has a memory card, an SD card, that you can remove from the camera, and in this computer it has a memory card reader, so you can put a memory card in and transfer whatever's on that memory card into your computer and save it into the hard drive. So you can access the data. It's useful. It's not something that would sway me into buying a computer if it didn't have a media card reader, because you can buy external ones, USB ones. Bluetooth. Now, all computers have Bluetooth, but what Bluetooth actually allows you to do is to connect devices wirelessly over a short-range connection. The most obvious being a camera. You might connect your camera via Bluetooth to your computer. Cameras have Bluetooth, and that will allow you to transfer photos backwards and forwards from device to device. Headphones, you can go and buy some headphones that operate with Bluetooth, so that you can be wirelessly using headphones when you're not even connected to your computer. You can be in another room listening to music that you're playing through iTunes without any physical connection. Mobile phones, digital cameras, scanners. There are a range of devices, wireless keyboards, that you can use to connect via Bluetooth. Bluetooth you can turn off if you don't need it, but it's a wireless technology, and all computers that you buy should have that. The graphics card, fairly important part of a computer. It is essential that perhaps you get a graphics card that is separate from the computer. So an integrated graphics card may not be such a good idea, because that's using a different part of the memory. Separate graphics card, one that has a lot of memory, like a gigabyte or more. Whatever graphics card the computer has, and in this case it's got an AMD Radeon card, and I have no idea what that card is like and how good it is, what its performance is. So if I was going to buy this computer, I would be getting onto the internet, onto Google, and looking at a review of that card and seeing if it is a good deal. It's got 1 gigabyte of memory, but is it a good card? Are there better ones? Is it something cheap that they're just putting in? You do need to do your research on the components of a computer that you intend to buy. The hard drive, get the highest capacity you can afford. 1 terabyte is the minimum that you would go for, and even now that is not enough if you're going to be doing a lot of or downloading and saving photos, TV shows, movies, music. All of that is going to eat up the capacity of your hard drive. 3 gigabytes is a good size, which is better. It depends on what you're going to do with that computer. It might help if you understood what the acronyms mean when you look at GBs. How much is a gigabyte compared to a terabyte? So here's a little chart that will explain a little bit about what they all mean. The smallest measurement digitally is a bit. Computers only understand binary, zeros or ones, and 8 bits make a byte, and 1 character on a keyboard is equivalent to 1 byte. So for example, the letter C on a keyboard would have a decimal value. That decimal value is converted into a binary value, which is what the computer looks at. It only looks at bits. The megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, they're the main ones that you need to be aware of. If you were to download a song, that would be a few hundred megabytes. A TV show would be almost a gigabyte. It could be more than a gigabyte, depending on the quality that you encode it at. A terabyte, there's no one single file that's a terabyte, but if you're downloading a lot of TV shows or buying a lot of TV shows or ripping TV shows or movies, then you're going to be using a lot of gigabytes. There are 1,000 megabytes in 1 gigabyte, and there are 1,000 gigabytes makes up 1 terabyte. A terabyte hard drive, if you're doing a lot of movies, etc., is not going to last long. The higher the capacity, the better in terms of what you can store. Screen resolution refers to the clarity of what you see on your screen. The higher the resolution of the screen, the sharper the items will appear. And the higher the resolution of the screen, the smaller they will appear. So you can have a really high definition and high resolution screen, but it's going to be really hard to see what's on there, the text. And so I have one of those, but I can't read the text. It's so small without squinting, so I have to lower the resolution a little. At low resolutions, a low resolution screen, you're going to have jagged edges. In terms of this one, it has a 23-inch screen, which is a fairly good size, and if you're looking at screen size, you want a 24-inch or 30-inch screen, 27-inch screen, somewhere in that range. And the 1920 by 1080 means that it's a high-definition screen. That if you were to watch a movie or a TV show, you would be able to watch it in HD if that file was in HD. That is a good screen. I wouldn't be too fussed with that, although I probably want a bigger one, 27-inch or 30-inch. If you're going to buy a computer, then the next decision is what sort of operating system are you going to be looking at? Every computer must have an operating system. It's the software within the computer that runs the computer. The operating system manages all the computer's memory and all its procedures, its processes, its software and its hardware. The computer cannot function if it does not have an operating system. Without one, it's as good as a brick. It won't do anything. The computer's language is its operating system. When your computer starts, it's known as booting. So you might hear the phrase when boot the computer or when you boot up the computer. And those images in the screen here is the boot up procedure for a Windows 7 computer. When you turn on a computer, it goes through what's called a power on self-test post. And it's looking at making sure that everything's working. It's running tests to make sure everything works, that it can see the hard drive, that it has an operating system. If something is wrong, if it can't find any RAM or the RAM module is not seated properly, in the computer, and it will fail that test and it just won't boot up. It checks for hardware, it starts the operating system, and once it's booted and it's gone through all those processes, you end up with that opening screen, which is that bottom image on the right. That is the startup screen. Once Windows is booted, everything is okay. It's come back to the startup screen where all the little icons and shortcuts that you have on your screen are there. That is booting, and all computers go through that. Some booting processes take longer than others. The computer operating system, then, there's a couple of decisions. Do you go Mac or do you go Windows if you're buying a computer? Whether it's a laptop or a desktop, you have to make that decision, a Mac or Windows. The operating system on a Mac is OS 10, and its current flavour, it's Mountain Lion. You can still get Macs that have the previous one, Lion, but all new ones will come with Mountain Lion. Similarly, the Windows computer, the current operating system is Windows 8, and any new computer you buy will have Windows 8 on it, not 7. And there are some problems with Windows because of this, desktop computers and laptops, which we're going to look at now. Windows 8 is the new operating system, and it's an operating system which is perfect for tablets, and you can get tablets that run Windows 8 because it's a touch screen, a touch interface, which doesn't work well on a desktop where you can't touch the screen and make anything happen, and you're using the mouse and maybe a trackpad and keyboard to actually get things to work. It's just not the same intuitive experience. If you had a tablet, you could get a Bluetooth keyboard, you could get a Bluetooth mouse, and you could actually connect those to your tablet, and then you could run the tablet like a PC, because the other good thing about Windows 8 is that it runs Office and Windows quite well. However, for me, Windows 8 would be give it to someone that you hate. A Christmas gift for someone you hate is a quote that I've heard from somewhere, because it is a very, very steep learning curve. If you're used to Windows 7, this new interface will confuse you, particularly when you're going to use it with a keyboard and mouse. It's not the ideal way to manage a desktop PC, but as I said, it's perfect for touch-based tablets. Windows 7, however, you can't get that anymore on a new machine. So if you've already got a computer with Windows 7, you've got to make a decision, do I upgrade to Windows 8? If you don't have a computer and you're going to buy one, then you're going to have to bite the bullet and learn Windows 8. And technology and being connected in the technological world means always changing, always adapting. So there are a few Windows 8 tutorials here, and the links for those will be in the accompanying documents that you can download. But there are a lot of tutorials to help you, but it will take some time and a very frustrating experience while you're doing that. If you don't want to go Windows, then go Mac, because in a Mac you'll never see this screen, the blue screen of death. Windows famous for it. I'm not sure if it happens so much now, but that is one of the reasons why I moved away from Windows, because Macs just don't fail. Make the ultimate upgrade to a Mac. There's a link there. Again, see the document. Reasons why you might like a Mac. It isn't as steep a learning curve that you might think going from Windows to Mac. I was a switcher, did not take long, and it has quite a range of hardware, going from laptops to all-in-one desktops and Mac Minis where you attach it to a separate screen. Macs, to me, just don't fail. They are a wonderful Mac experience to have. Mobile or desktop. So if you've decided on what operating system you want, either going OS 10 Mac or you're going Windows 8, then are you going to have a mobile solution? So you're going to get a laptop, or you're going to get a tablet, or you're going to get a desktop machine. So a Windows desktop machine, or you could get, if you wanted to go Mac, you'd get the iMac, which is the all-in-one computer. They're the decisions you need to make then. And these may be some of the questions that you ask yourself before you make that decision. So, do I need a computer at all? Will a mobile phone and a tablet actually replace my desktop and or laptop? Do I need them both? Uh, do I need a desktop computer anymore? Because an entry-level laptop will provide me with everything that I need. It's got enough RAM, it has storage, it has file management, because tablets do not have a file structure like a computer does, and you need to have some creative ways of getting files in and out of a laptop. They have storage capabilities, computer. So cloud services means that I could also save my files in the cloud, so using Windows SkyDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Google Docs, Box.net, Gmail or Hotmail are all services in the cloud that I could use with just a tablet. I could also use them with a computer as well. They use similar operating systems, so if you wanted to get an iPad that uses the mobile version of iOS or of OS 10, which is the iOS, Windows 8 now uses the same operating system as the Windows desktop, so the operating systems aren't going to be a problem. It's just, what do I need? Do I need a both tablet or an iPad, or can I get away with just a tablet? And again, it depends on what you're going to do. Are you going to be a content consumer where all you're doing is receiving emails, sending emails, maybe taking some photos, surfing? You're not doing a lot of computing that's in depth. Or you're going to be a creator where you're going to need to do some heavy-duty editing or use a lot of file structure to save and manage your storage. Depends what you want to do and what you're going to use it for. And this was said earlier in the presentation. So to help you make that decision, do I need a tablet or a laptop or just a smartphone? Some tables on all the advantages and disadvantages of each of the three platforms. For a tablet, it's excellent for all those reasons on the right. It's a great entertainment device, and you can do browsing and email. You can consume content. You can also create content on a tablet because there are apps that will allow you to do that. If you like the feel of a physical keyboard, then the tablet with its virtual keyboard may be something that you don't like, although you can get a Bluetooth keyboard and attach it, connect it to a tablet so you have your physical keyboard. How are you going to connect the tablet? You need a Wi-Fi tablet, or do you need a 3G, 4G tablet? And they require data plans, so you're continually paying for your data that way. But they're portable, they're easy to use, and there are apps for every occasion. And the smartphone, to me, the smartphone is a phone. Now I have an iPad. I rarely use the phone other than making calls and texts and checking email because the screen is too small. All the apps and the games that I used to use religiously on the phone are never looked at now because I've got an iPad. So to me, a smartphone is a phone. Although now you can get the Android phones are bigger screens, so they're 5-7 inches, some of the phones. Then you have other problems because now it's too big to make a phone call with. Viewing media is more difficult. So if you've just got a phone and you haven't got a tablet, then you're going to need a computer as well, because the phone on its own is not enough. The laptop, the disadvantages of a laptop as a mobile device is that it's bulky, it's heavy. Even though it's mobile, it's still, you need a big case to protect it. And it is going to be heavier, and it's slower to boot up than a tablet. Tablet is on instantly as soon as you switch it on or flick a little tab, it's on. With the laptop, you also need some way of connecting to the internet. So either you have an external dongle which gives you 3G, 4G connectivity, or you have some sort of broadband cable connection. But it has more storage. You can back up files. It has that file structure. You can do anything on a laptop. You don't need a very expensive laptop to be able to do almost anything. Get one with as much RAM as you can and a fairly decent size hard drive, but a lot of external devices can be attached to it. In my opinion, you need at least a laptop and a tablet. You need the two of them. So if you've decided to go mobile, you're going to get a tablet, then which one are you going to get? There is mobile operating systems, the Android operating system or Apple's iOS operating system. So Android, you can get a tablet or a smartphone. And for Apple, their mobile devices are the iPhone, currently the iPhone 5, an iPad or an iPod Touch. And the iOS operating system, which is Apple's mobile operating system, and it functions for those devices there, it's currently in its version 6 release. So iOS 6 was released in October 2012 at the same time as the iPhone 5. If you had an iPad or an iPhone 4S or a 4 iPod Touch, they would also have received an update to iOS 6. Every time a new operating system comes out for Apple, most of the devices, some of the very, very old ones won't work with the new release operating systems, but the majority of them all get updated. Unlike Windows, if you get a new Windows operating system, like Windows 8, you're only going to get it if you get a new machine. Mostly Windows users stay with what they've got unless you're a real geek, and then you're always updating. Each operating system upgrade has new features. The advantages of the iOS system is that it's very uniform. It works the same on every Apple device. It has high quality checks because Apple keeps a very constantly high check on everything that comes down the production line for iOS. It's flexible and customization. They are not there in the iOS. They've been traded in for that uniform experience and the knowledge that what you're getting is bug-free virtually anyway. It just works. It's tightly controlled, the Apple system. Android, on the other hand, is an open source platform that Google have established, and Google owns the source code, but they release that code to developers and allow it to be modified, freely modified, distributed by different manufacturers, and even as an enthusiast, you might want to develop something yourself. It's become the fastest growing mobile operating system, equally as important in terms of users as Apple's iOS. And its openness means that it's a favourite for developers because it allows them to tweak it and develop it according to what they want in their specs for their particular platform. So each successive version of Android means that new developers will develop it or tweak it. The only problem with it, trouble with it, is that the wide variety of Android updates, and there are so many updates to Android. With iOS, you might get it once a year if you're lucky, a new version of iOS. You might have little incremental improvements to iOS 6, but iOS 7, it'll be at least a year before we see it. For Android updates, they're constantly changing them and updating them. And you're not sure what version of Android your device is running. You can go into a computer shop, JB Hi-Fi is an example, and you look at the tablets and there is such an overwhelming choice of tablets. You don't know what to get or what version of Android your device is running. If you want to download an app from the Google Play Store, then you've got to look at what version of Android will this run on. It doesn't happen on the App Store. Everything will work unless you've got a very, very old device. The major problem then with Android devices, phone or tablet, is this fragmentation. There's so many different versions that you don't know what you're getting or which one is better than another. The flavors of Android, and they call their operating system after cakes. So you have no idea which version you've got. If the specs on a little place card in the computer shop say this tablet is running Jelly Bean, Well, I don't know what jelly bean is. And is jelly bean come after donut or before gingerbread? I have no idea. There are so many versions of Android that it confuses the hell out of you. Here's an example. In 2011, Apple had the 4S, iPhone 4S. There was no iPhone 5, and they were running iOS version 5. And every Apple device, apart from the very, very old ones that don't get updated, would run iOS version 5. In 2011, the Android operating system that had all those devices there on the right, phones and tablets, were using some version of Android. And they were using the Android on top of their proprietary software. So if you bought an HTC Wildfire phone, you would have HTC menus and HTC backgrounds, which were incorporated with whatever version of Android they were using. And it wasn't consistent over devices. HTC can tweak the Android operating system using their own features, and they can ignore the updates. Every time Google puts out an update to Android, you might not see it on your device for a long time. It might never come, might take months to appear on the device. That to me is the major problem with Android. So if you've decided, yes, tablet, I'm going to get a tablet, and you know you're going to get a Apple or a Android, then what do you buy? Do you buy a Wi-Fi only tablet, or do you buy a tablet that has 3G or 4G and Wi-Fi? So Wi-Fi is wireless. So if you're within range of a wireless network, so if you're at home and you've got wireless, or you're at a free wireless hotspot like McDonald's or Gloria Jeans, they have free wireless, then you're okay. Your connection to the internet will stay consistent. Many apps will work without needing to connect to the internet. And if you're going away, you might download a whole lot of TV shows or movies and load them up on your tablet so you can watch it without an internet connection. But Wi-Fi is not often enough. I have a tablet, an Android tablet, which is Wi-Fi only, and it's just very difficult to use it because I have to think about where am I going? Am I going to be at a place where there's Wi-Fi, or do I need to take my iPad, which has 3G? To me, the Wi-Fi / 3G, 4G option is the way to go because you've got the best of both worlds there. 3G, what is 3G and 4G is the missing bit there. So if you're away from Wi-Fi, you need some way of connecting to the internet, like a phone. The phone has a SIM card in it, which is connected to the phone carrier. The tablets have micro SIM cards, and they're also connected to whatever carrier you bought the SIM from. It's the most widely available form of mobile broadband in Australia, 3G, but 4G is becoming increasingly available. If you need to be connected, then you need to consider the 3G or Wi-Fi or 4G. To connect to it, you just need to buy a SIM card, so a micro SIM card, and you can get them at phone shops, at places like Dick Smith or JB Hi-Fi. They sell micro SIMs, and that simply accesses the data services on the network that you bought it from. So if I've got a Telstra micro SIM in my iPad, then I can have purchased a prepaid data plan, so I can have $20 for 1 gigabyte of data for that month, and I can the more I pay, the more data I have. Or I could go on a postpaid plan and get a two-year contract, similar to the phone. Now, I don't want a contract for my iPad. I simply want to be able to have some data when I need it because I don't use the data that often. I've generally got Wi-Fi, but if I go out and I'm sitting in the coffee shop and I want to play one of my games that requires the internet, then I can use the data for that. So you need to decide what you're going to do. The tablet, in summary then, is portable. And whether you get a 7-inch tablet or a 10-inch tablet, it's convenient, it's lightweight, it's got a touch screen, so you don't need keyboard virtually to manage it. You don't need a mouse for navigation. It all works on fingers, tapping, pressing, pinching, zooming. Smaller than a laptop, bigger than a smartphone, but still has its weaknesses. If you're going for a tablet, what size are you going to go for then? They're now coming in more sizes than a 10-inch. They come in a variety of sizes, the most common being the 7-inch tablet and the 10-inch tablet. So what size are you going to get? If you're on a budget and you're looking for a cheap one, then the 7-inch tablet might be what you go for, but know that the cheaper the device, the less powerful it is. You get what you pay for. 7-inch tablets are good if you want to hold them in your hand, so without holding them in two hands. They're a bit lighter, but they're not as good for looking at media, television and movies. You can do it, but they're not as good as the larger 10-inch tablet. So if you like watching movies and films and TV shows, it's a better experience on a bigger screen. If you do a lot of typing, you've got more screen real estate to actually see what you're typing. Your virtual keyboard will be bigger. Both 7-inch and 10-inch can come in various capacities. So you have to, again, decide all of the decisions you make on getting connected and staying connected is what are you going to do? How are you going to use these devices that you're going to buy? The link there, and again, check the document for the links. The link is to an article in the Age newspaper about the dilemma you have now about what you actually buy. Apart from the iPad, there's this enormous array of tablets. They are the flavour of the month now. Laptops are not dying out, but they're not as much demand for them as they seem to be for the tablets. The problem is the choice you now have is overwhelming. So once you've decided, yes, I want a tablet, then go onto Google and do some and type in the search term tablet reviews and look for Australian tablet reviews, not something in another country. And there's a few examples there just by typing into Google tablet reviews. That's some of the things that came up. The best 5 tablets from CNET Australia. Tablets 2013, what are the best tablets? And it'll give you some ideas about what are the best ones, and then you can go and actually look up one of the ones it gives you. So say it says that Windows Surface, the Microsoft Surface is the best tablet, then go onto YouTube and type in the search bar Microsoft Surface tablet review. As long as you put the word review in your search terms, then you'll get a little video about someone who's created a video to review that tablet. Do your research. Don't just go into a shop and, oh, that one looks nice, and be sucked in by what the salesman says. You really have to know your stuff. It takes a bit of research, particularly on prices, which is who's going to give me the best price. You can do all of that online without traipsing from shop to shop. The same with the iPad. You've got a variety of choice with the iPad. Do you go for the iPad mini, which is the 7.9-inch iPad, just released last year? The iPad 2 is the second generation, and that's quite cheap now, but it's not as fast and the screen isn't as good. The 4th generation iPad is the current one, and it's a 10-inch one. It has a Retina display, and a Retina display is just something that Apple has. It's a type of screen technology that Apple uses on all its latest phones, iPads and MacBooks and iMacs. And it's all it means is that when you view the screen from a normal distance, the screen is so sharp that you won't be able to detect the individual pixels on the screen. And this is supposedly as good a display as the human eye can comprehend. The 3rd generation iPad is the one I have, and because that came out last year, and too many models coming out, I can't afford to keep on buying the latest and greatest. 3rd generation iPad is just as good to me as the iPad 4th. The iPad 2 has the same specs as the Mini, so it's not as good as the 4th generation, but again, you're going to get what you pay for. The smartphone, and you have smartphones which are just mini computers, and again, you've got the choice between the iPhone, the Windows phone, or an Android phone. First of all, what is a smartphone? and it's essentially a computer in your pocket. It does more than just make calls. It actually could serve as a functional laptop. The only problem is that it's very, very small screen, but it's still a computer, as opposed to a feature phone. And a feature phone just makes calls, sends text. Maybe you can receive and take a picture, but very poor quality camera. That doesn't do much. With a smartphone, you can do exactly what you can do on a computer, although it's in a more limited way. The smartphone has high-speed internet access, so you can surf the web, you can do your emails, you can purchase things. It does everything from being a calculator to a calendar. It has third-party programs. It has apps that will allow you to connect and participate and produce. It's amazing. But which one do you get? The Android phone, the Windows phone, or the iPhone? And there's a little comparison table there. Which one has the better battery life? Which one has the better keyboard? Decisions on phones would be similar process to what you do for the tablet. And ultimately, once you've decided on a phone, a make of phone, say it's a Samsung phone, and that's an Android phone, then you go and you do your research on that phone and what version of Android does it run, what apps does it run, what's its battery life, all those specs that you need to know. Compare different types of phones before you decide on what you're going to get, which is what we're going to look at. So if you're looking at hardware, your choice is between choice versus polish. Apple's the only company that makes the iPhone, so it has tight control how everything works. They all work together. It's a very aesthetic experience, an iPhone. Now, because Google offers its software to many phone makers, Android phones are going to vary quite a bit in size, in weight, features, quality, user experience. And again, it's subjective, the decisions you might make. For me, the winner in the hardware is the iPhone. The OS compatibility. So if you want the latest and the greatest features of an operating system, then it's the iPhone, because the iOS 6, the operating system that's on the iPhone 5, is the latest and the greatest. For Android, because they're very slow about updating their phones, they may not have the latest Android operating system. Google keeps updating the operating system, but the manufacturers don't update their phones. So iPhone again, winner. For apps, Apple's strict about what apps it allows. It has an app store, but not all the apps that are submitted to the Apple App Store actually get through the process, because it has very strict standards and policies, while the Android Google Play Store is more lax. Not all of the best apps make it to the Android, and those that do don't necessarily run on all phones. So you might get an app that's been submitted to the Google Play Store that it has some malicious code in it. It doesn't work, it's buggy, and it might not run on all the different versions of Android. The opposite is true with Apple. If it's in the App Store, the Apple App Store, it's going to work on an Apple device with no problem. The battery life. The battery life is more varied on Android phones because of the differences in the hardware. It's more complex because of the large variety of models. With both phones, the battery-intensive apps means that battery life can be affected, and the battery life, again, it depends what you do and how you use your phone as to what the battery life is like. The iPhone, I have an iPhone, and the battery would last me a whole 24 hours or more, not just a work day. I generally charge it overnight, but I don't necessarily need to. I don't have an Android device, so I'm not sure what the battery life is like for that. The screen size, well, the Android phones win here because they've got much bigger screens. If you're looking for the biggest screens, the Android's a clear choice, but it will consume more battery power. The iPhone 5 is smaller, but it has the Retina display technology, which makes it a high-resolution screen, but it's smaller. So I would love a bigger screen on the iPhone, The iPhone 5 is a bigger screen, but hardly makes any difference. It's not enough for me to upgrade from a 4S to a 5. The user experience. What are you going for? An elegant, lovely phone or the ability to customize and tweak your phone? If you want complete control over your phone, then Android is the one to get because it's open, you can tweak it, you can jailbreak it, you can do a lot more geeky things on an Android phone. If you just want something that works, has a quality experience, is aesthetically pleasing, then go for the iPhone, because it works. Clear choice for me. The battery on a phone. Basically, every feature in your phone is sucking the life out of your battery. There is a link there on the right to an article on how to make your phone last longer, what things you should be able to turn off. But many factors affect battery life: the screen size, the apps you run, if you've got Bluetooth turned on, if you've got Wi-Fi turned on because it's continually searching for networks. An example, a benchmark test, the iPhone lasted 12 hours looping a video clip, whereas the Galaxy 3 Android only lasted 7 hours. So it'll depend. There's some of the solutions to battery. Use the lowest screen brightness. Switch off the Wi-Fi, the 4G, 3G, the Bluetooth, if you're not using them, because that's going to suck your battery. But it's sort of making the phone not as useful as to me. Don't flatten the battery completely, so otherwise it's going to die much sooner than normal. So don't discharge it all the way. When it's almost flat, then charge it. The GPS will suck the life out of your battery, so if you don't have to use it, turn it off. But most and a lot of the apps want to know where you are, so defeats the purpose. And turn off things that happen in the background, like auto updating and syncing to the cloud. Which phone's the most secure? So which phone is the most secure? The major risk to security is you. A lot of these things are things that you might do that might jeopardise the security on your phone. If you leave it on the bus or anywhere else and you've got applications with sensitive data, then there's a security risk that could have been prevented. If you install dodgy apps, so particularly from the Android Google Play Store, that's where the dodgy apps are. The Apple App Store does not have any dodgy apps. It's high quality control for an iPhone. If you're using unsecured Wi-Fi, so if you're using a hotspot in the local coffee shop that's unsecured, and anyone who is also using that same Wi-Fi network can see what you're doing if they want to with only a little bit of software, and can take your files, capture your passwords. So Wi-Fi, be careful where you use it. Never click on links in emails because they could take you to a site that is trying to steal your identity or your information. So if an email comes to you with a website link in it, copy the link from the email, then go to your browser, Internet Explorer if you're using Windows, paste the link in and open it from there, because at least then you can see where the site's going to take you. Malvertising, a new term now. Genuine ads that you might see on a phone, on a website, that look genuine, but when you click on them, lead to malware. Malware is soft with viruses, dodgy code, try and get onto your phone. The terms of service agreements in apps. If you buy an app from a phone, download an app, before it lets you use it, there is an agreement that you're meant to read and agree to. If you don't read that carefully, and let's face it, who does? A lot of these apps have in-app purchases that you've agreed to that you didn't know you had, and they can start to be sending you stuff you don't want. So be careful what you do. Take advantage of reading through everything, even though it might be a pain. You might not be installing what you think you're installing. So don't install unknown apps. So you might be an app that you got from a friend. Download apps only from the official app store of the device that you're using. So if it's an iPhone, you've got the App Store, the Apple App Store. If it's an Android phone, then it's usually the Google Play Store. Protect your phone with a password or a PIN in case you lose it or something. Always install the phone's updates where they're available. If they're not available, you can't very well do it. Don't use unsecured Wi-Fi. So, I'm very, very rarely will go into McDonald's and use their Wi-Fi. Or if I do, I'm careful what I do on there. Use a security app. There are many apps that you can download from the App Store which actually is a security app which will lock up your phone a little bit more safely. Do a search on the App Store for security. Don't click on links in emails or ads in the app. If you download a free app, free apps come at a price, so to speak, because they are going to be ad supported. And if you click on one of those ads, that could be malvertising, malware, viruses that you're clicking into. Turn Bluetooth off if you're not using it, because it is a bit of a security risk. And back up your data to the cloud. So if you've got photos or you've got some sort of documents, then have a way of backing that up. If you've got an iPhone, iCloud will do that for you. If you don't have one, then you can subscribe to one of the cloud services like Dropbox or Google Drive or Windows SkyDrive. Protecting your phone. So what you'd want to do is to limit your search to official markets. So only download apps, as I said in the last slide, from official stores. Before you download an app, read the review. There is a review of apps in the App Store before you download them. You can read what people have said about it, whether it's a good app, a bad app, a worthwhile app, whether it's dodgy, whether it's given viruses, whether it's crashed your phone. Read the reviews before downloading it. Review all of your agreements before you actually agree to use the app. Rooting the phone is where you actually use a bit of software and sort of take off the copy protection, if you like. It allows you to tweak the phone and do more to it than the manufacturer really wants you to. Jailbreaking, it's also called that. Keep up to date on all updates. So whenever there's an update available, update your phone as soon as possible. Don't leave it. Install a security app, and if you're using, I know if you're using an iPhone, that you can install an app like Find My iPhone, which remotely will wipe what's on your phone and disable it. The App Store have a lot of security apps. Have a look for some, do some research on what the reviews are for that particular app. Both Android, Windows phones and iPhones all will be able to use apps, little applications. They can all get books, ebooks, music, movies. The App Store has a wide variety of content. The content there is more polished because they have greater quality control on their apps. There's fewer variables to consider compared to Android, who can tweak and develop to their heart's content. iTunes is the access into the App Store, and iTunes has the biggest international content footprint. So if you're going to buy music or TV or movies, there's a better chance that Apple's going to be able to have what you want. The apps go through a rigorous approval process on the Apple App Store. It enhances the quality and the security of them. Android, on the other hand, has an open ethos. They have more apps that allow you, as the user or the developer, to modify your device. So they've often got bugs in them. They're very buggy. A lot of apps are available across platforms. So if you wanted to use Facebook, for example, you'd get a Facebook app for Google, Windows, or an Apple phone. A lot of the popular apps can be played on all different platforms, whatever you use. Just as an example there for the App Store, in the Windows phone, the Windows is just coming into the arena quite late. So they have a marketplace. So if you've got a Windows tablet or a Windows phone, that's the statistics for how many apps they've got in the actual Windows marketplace. They haven't got a lot yet, but they'll catch up. But the apps there are specifically for Windows phones. They have actual, genuine Office apps, but they're the lower part of the marketplace. The Android, and from last year, they've got 700,000 apps. They're just about caught up to the Apple App Store, and they'll eventually overtake the iOS, the iPhone, in quantity because there's so many more different types of Android phones. They've had 25 billion downloads in the last year. But most of their growth is in the free apps, and those are the ones that are the buggy ones that haven't really been quality tested and you don't know what you're getting. 21% of their apps are low quality. It's hit and miss what you get on the Android marketplace, and it may not actually work with your version of the Android phone. The leader in apps at the moment is the Apple App Store. 750,000 apps in the App Store, almost caught up Android, and they've been downloaded more than 30 billion times. 250,000 specifically for the iPad. 410 million devices activated as of June last year. And Windows is growing very slowly. Apple apps are slightly better, I would think. And if I was to get a phone based on content, it would be an iPhone based on that reason. All phones have cameras, and the iPhone has the best results in low light. It's good for very tight shots. It has a 5, I think it's more now actually. The 4S has a 5 megapixel camera. The iPhone 5 is a slightly better camera. They've all got cameras, and each device, the camera will work in a different way. They've got video cameras. Some of the Android phones have bigger screens. They've all got full-feature cameras though, but the Android phones might have more settings to. Depends how much you want to actually fiddle, or do you just want to open the camera app and tap the shutter and there's the photo, or do you want to really muck around with it? If you do, then you need an Android phone. This ends part 2 of this presentation. The last part of living in a connecting world will look at living online, how to stay safe, a little bit about cloud services, and there is a link to that presentation right here.